The moment corporate lawyer Marcus Thompson walked into Federal Judge Patricia Williams' courtroom, his $5,000 suit and arrogant smirk telegraphed exactly what kind of day he thought he was going to have. He'd steamrolled judges for 2 decades, dismissed opponents with condescending remarks, and never met a courtroom he couldn't dominate. But what happened in the next 60 seconds would end his career forever. Judge Williams was about to deliver one line so brutal, so perfectly timed, that it would become the most replayed courtroom moment in legal history. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss any of these explosive political moments. Now get ready to see how one lawyer's arrogance earned him a place in history for all the wrong reasons. The sound of Marcus Thompson's footsteps echoed through the marble corridors of the federal courthouse with an air of triumph. At 45, this corporate law titan had become a partner at one of New York's most prestigious law firms over the past 20 years, $1 billion cases, and earned an almost untouchable reputation in the legal world. A Harvard Law School graduate, Thompson saw himself not just as a lawyer, but as a master of the legal system. That morning, Thompson faced one of Blackstone Industries' biggest cases. Environmental protection organizations claimed the company was responsible for decades of water pollution. For Thompson, this was just another day. He would debunk the evidence, silence opposing lawyers, and lead his client to victory. He had no doubt about it. When he entered the courtroom, Thompson's eyes immediately focused on the woman at the bench. Federal Judge Patricia Williams, 52 years old, with 15 years of federal judicial experience, was far more dangerous than Thompson had anticipated. Throughout her career, Williams had never compromised on justice in corporate cases, always came prepared, and never tolerated disrespect. As Thompson placed his papers on the table, he glanced at the opposing counsel. Sarah Chen, a 34-year-old environmental law specialist, was nothing more than an idealistic rookie in Thompson's eyes. Sitting next to Chen was Dr. Michael Rodriguez, an environmental engineer who had prepared technical reports on the company's operations. Thompson thought these two people stood no chance against him. When Judge Williams opened the court, there was an authority in her voice that Thompson hadn't expected. This case concerns the environmental pollution lawsuit against Blackstone Industries. The plaintiff may present their arguments. Sarah Chen stood up and began her presentation. The documents in her hand showed that Blackstone had violated environmental standards for years, dumped toxic waste into rivers, and endangered public health. Chen's presentation was detailed, well-prepared, and convincing. Thompson pretended to take notes while actually waiting for Chen to make rookie mistakes. However, Chen's presentation was much stronger than Thompson had hoped. The documents in her hand were evidence obtained from Blackstone's internal correspondence, showing that the company knowingly covered up pollution. Dr. Rodriguez's technical analysis documented that chemical levels in water samples exceeded legal limits by 10 times. When Chen's presentation ended, Thompson stood up. In his view, the easiest way to win this case was to undermine the credibility of the opposing side's evidence and humiliate them before the judge. This was the strategy Thompson had used for years, establishing psychological dominance by belittling his opponent. "Your Honor," Thompson began, his voice carrying that familiar arrogant tone, "the so-called evidence presented by the opposing side falls far short of meeting real legal standards. Dr. Rodriguez's reports lack scientific methodology, and Ms. Chen's claims are entirely based on speculation." Thompson turned toward Chen with a condescending smile and continued, "Your Honor, environmental law is a complex field, and frankly, it's not surprising that lawyers without sufficient experience in this area present misleading information." A slight murmur was heard in the courtroom. Thompson had directly accused Chen of inexperience, which was a personal attack contrary to court procedures. But Thompson wasn't aware of this. He was only focused on making his opponent appear weak. Sarah Chen moved to stand up, but Judge Williams stopped her by raising her hand. Williams' facial expression had changed. Thompson's disrespect was the ugliest example of arrogance Williams had seen in years in the legal profession. "Mr. Thompson," Williams' voice was cold and controlled, "before you continue, I want to clarify something. Is it your place to question the competence of opposing counsel in this courtroom?" Thompson didn't notice the warning tone in the judge's voice. In his eyes, Williams was just another judge who should bow to him. "Your Honor, I'm simply trying to emphasize the level of expertise this case requires. Those who are not experienced in environmental law, enough." Williams' voice echoed through the courtroom. Thompson paused for the first time. He could see the anger in the judge's eyes but still couldn't grasp the seriousness of the situation. It was at this moment that Thompson was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. He decided to challenge the judge's authority. When Marcus Thompson decided to ignore Judge Williams' warning, the atmosphere in the courtroom changed. Experienced lawyers, journalists, and law clerks could sense something was going wrong. Thompson, however, had lost himself. The arrogance he had developed throughout his career prevented him from seeing how dangerous his current situation was. Your Honor, Thompson continued, with an undiminished air of superiority in his voice, perhaps you haven't fully grasped the technical complexity of this case. Environmental law, especially industrial waste management issues, are subjects that even people who have worked in this field for many years find challenging. A deep intake of breath was heard from the courtroom. Thompson had indirectly implied that the federal judge was inadequate in understanding the subject. This was one of the greatest disrespects that could be shown in federal court. Judge Williams slowly leaned back. In her 15-year federal judicial career, she had never seen such blatant insult. It was obvious that Thompson wasn't aware of what he was doing. Williams decided to give him one last chance. Mr. Thompson, I suggest you choose your words carefully. I believe you have exceeded the boundaries of respect in this courtroom. But Thompson ignored this warning as well. He had now become almost maniacal. His habit of crushing other lawyers, and even some judges, for years gave him the illusion that he could triumph in this situation too. Your Honor, interpreting the scientific data in this case really does require expertise. Blackstone Industries' environmental policies are complex procedures that I can fully understand thanks to the advanced environmental law education I received at Harvard. On these matters, Thompson stopped. He had seen the expression on Judge Williams' face. It was cold, calculating, and dangerous. Everyone in the courtroom was holding their breath. Williams slowly stood up. Federal judges standing up was a sign of extraordinary circumstances. Thompson's heart began to race, but he still wouldn't back down. Mr. Thompson, Williams' voice was ice cold, thank you for mentioning your Harvard education. This encourages me to share my own background. Williams took the papers from above her bench. Thompson wondered what these were, but a bad feeling was starting inside him. I see that you graduated from Harvard Law School in 1998. You have never received formal education in environmental law. You are a corporate law specialist, and this is your first experience in environmental pollution cases. Thompson's face went pale. How did Williams have this information? I, on the other hand, Williams continued, graduated from Stanford Law School in 1994. I specialized in environmental law. I worked as a lawyer at the Environmental Protection Agency for 3 years. I served as an environmental law specialist in the private sector for 7 years. And for the past 15 years, I have been serving as a federal judge, hearing hundreds of environmental cases. There was complete silence in the courtroom. Thompson's arrogant expression had given way to panic. So Mr. Thompson, Williams' voice now took on a threatening tone, if there is anyone inadequate in environmental law in this courtroom, it is you. Thompson tried to open his mouth but couldn't get words out. Williams wasn't finished yet. Moreover, your questioning of Ms. Chen's competence is quite ironic. Because she graduated with a doctorate degree in environmental law from Berkeley Law School, has worked exclusively on environmental cases for the past 8 years, and is an expert who has received awards from the Environmental Protection Agency. Sarah Chen looked at Thompson. There was not triumph in her eyes, but pity. Williams put her papers on the table and walked toward Thompson. Federal judges leaving their benches was a very rare situation, and everyone knew what it meant. Mr. Thompson, every action you have taken since coming to this courtroom has been contrary to the fundamental principles of the legal profession. You tried to belittle the opposing side, questioned the judge's competence, and tried to mislead the court by exaggerating your own expertise. Thompson's hand began to tremble. He could understand that the end of his career was coming. But what is truly tragicomic, Williams continued, is that you came here with a resume that makes you the least knowledgeable person in this case and declared others inadequate. Thompson tried to speak one last time, Your Honor. Perhaps, silence. Mr. Thompson. Williams' voice filled the courtroom. Interrupting me has been added to the list of your accumulated disrespects. It was at this moment that Judge Patricia Williams was about to say the sentence that would go down in legal history. As Judge Patricia Williams stood facing Marcus Thompson, everyone in the courtroom could feel they were about to witness a historic moment. The arrogance on Thompson's face had completely disappeared, replaced by panic. The determination in Williams' eyes showed that this would not merely be a warning. Mr. Thompson, Williams' voice now reached every corner of the courtroom. In your 20-year legal career, have you ever come to a real courtroom so unprepared, displaying your own ignorance so openly? Thompson tried to open his mouth, but no words came out. Williams was just beginning. Because the performance you displayed here today is full of mistakes that even a first-year law school student wouldn't make. Williams turned back and took another file from her bench. Thompson's heart beat even faster. This file contains the complete record of Blackstone Industries' environmental violations over the past 5 years. If you had really prepared to represent your client, you should have had this information. Williams opened the file and began reading. $2.5 million fine from EPA in 2019. $1.8 million fine from Massachusetts Department of Environment in 2020. $3.2 million settlement in Connecticut in 2021. $4.1 million fine from New York Environmental Protection Department in 2022. Each figure made Thompson's face paler. And in 2023, a record $12 million fine from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. All of these stem from the same type of violations, polluting water sources by dumping toxic waste. Williams closed the file and looked at Thompson. This information is in public records. It could have been found with a simple internet search. But you came here without even knowing that your client paid $24 million in environmental fines over the past 5 years. The journalists in the courtroom were rapidly taking notes. This information was new to many of them too, and the story was getting bigger by the second. Furthermore, Williams continued, you claimed that Ms. Chen was inexperienced. But she was the plaintiff's attorney in the last 3 cases against Blackstone, including these cases, and won all 3. Sarah Chen smiled quietly. Thompson had now completely collapsed. Williams returned to her bench but didn't take her eyes off Thompson. Mr. Thompson, you came to this courtroom completely unprepared. You don't know your client's history, you didn't research your opponent's identity, you didn't examine the plaintiff's evidence, and you didn't learn about the judge's background. Thompson's cheeks were burning. Your Honor, I'm not finished yet. Williams' voice rang out. Your boast about being a Harvard graduate is particularly interesting. Because I also teach there as a visiting faculty member. Environmental law courses. This final blow completely floored Thompson. He had never researched Williams' connection to Harvard. And now I'm going to tell you this. Mr. Thompson, Williams' voice grew even colder. When I examine the evidence in this case, I find strong evidence showing that your client has indeed committed major environmental crimes. Williams opened her final file. Blackstone's internal correspondence, which were documents that should have been delivered during the discovery process and were hidden by your side, shows that the company knew about pollution problems and deliberately covered them up. Thompson tried to stand up. Your Honor, these documents show that you committed legal ethics violations. The anger in Williams' voice was now fully exposed. Hiding important documents during the discovery process? Trying to mislead the court? And coming so unprepared? There was complete silence in the courtroom. Everyone could understand that Williams was about to deliver the final blow. Mr. Thompson, Williams paused and looked into Thompson's eyes. Everyone in the courtroom held their breath, and then Judge Patricia Williams said the sentence that would go down in legal history: leave this courtroom and never practice law again. Because the performance you displayed here today is proof that you never belonged in this profession. The silence was so intense that you could hear a pin drop. Williams wasn't finished yet, and if you ever appear before me again, I will have you disbarred. Marcus Thompson watched his 20-year career collapse in ruins. The silence after Judge Patricia Williams' historic words seemed like it would last forever. Marcus Thompson stood there but seemed like he had lost his soul. His 20-year career, reputation, and future had been completely destroyed in the last few minutes. Everyone in the courtroom was trying to comprehend the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. Thompson began to gather his papers with trembling hands. His hands were shaking so much that documents fell to the floor. No one helped him. As he left the courtroom, he paused at the door and looked back one last time. Judge Williams ignored this final look as well. Sarah Chen stood up after watching Thompson's exit from the court. Your Honor, may we continue with the case? Williams smiled. Of course, Ms. Chen. And I look forward to hearing your evidence. During the court recess, journalists and legal observers excitedly pulled out their phones. The hashtag Judge Williams Shutdown began trending on social media. Videos of what had just happened were going viral on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Jennifer Nash, a reporter for Legal Times magazine, said she had never seen such a dramatic courtroom moment. Judge Williams didn't just silence a lawyer, she also provided legal education. Williams' professionalism and knowledge in the face of Thompson's arrogance serves as an example for young lawyers. Professor Robert Mitchell from Harvard Law School wrote on Twitter, I always tell my students, preparation always beats arrogance. Judge Williams gave the perfect example of this today. The prestigious law firm where Thompson worked, Hartwell Associates, called an emergency meeting. Senior partner James Hartwell said he had never seen such a scandal in his 40-year career and that Thompson would be immediately fired. Marcus Thompson no longer represents our firm. Hartwell's written statement was definitive. Today's behavior violates our firm's values and the ethical standards of the legal profession. Blackstone Industries also initiated its own crisis management. The company's legal director Amanda Foster announced that all contracts with Thompson had been terminated and the company was seeking new legal representation, but the real major impact was felt in the legal community. Law professors across the country began making the Williams-Thompson clash a subject of study. Professor Maria Rodriguez, who teaches ethics at Yale Law School, said, "This incident will be used in legal ethics and court procedure classes for years." The American Bar Association announced it had opened an ethics investigation into Thompson following the incident. The association's president David Park made a statement, "No lawyer can show such disrespect before a judge." Thompson's personal media accounts also closed. A few posts where he tried to defend himself on social media received even greater backlash. Colleagues from the legal community condemned his behavior. When the case resumed, Judge Williams' decision was clear. She ruled that Blackstone Industries must pay $50 million in damages for environmental violations and reorganize its operations to comply with environmental standards. Sarah Chen, in addition to winning the case, became a nationally recognized environmental law expert. She received dozens of speaking invitations in the coming weeks and received offers to write a book on environmental rights. "This case showed the power of truth and preparation," Chen said in a statement after the case. Thompson's mistake was underestimating his opponent. Dr. Michael Rodriguez's technical reports also received great attention in the scientific community. His study showing the health effects of environmental pollution became a precedent in similar cases. 3 months later, Marcus Thompson announced that he was completely leaving the legal profession. He resigned from the New York Bar Association and announced he was moving to the real estate sector. The prestige and reputation of his former career had completely disappeared. Judge Patricia Williams, meanwhile, became a legend among federal judges. Her decisions on court procedure and legal ethics began to be taught in law schools. The words Williams spoke that day became known as the Williams Doctrine. Lack of preparation and disrespect cannot be tolerated in the legal profession. A year later, Williams gave a lecture as a guest speaker at Harvard Law School. Williams, who showed the famous courtroom video in class, told students, "The legal profession is built on knowledge, preparation, and respect. When you lose any of these three values, you lose the profession as well." The Thompson incident became a turning point for the American legal system. Now no lawyer, no matter how experienced, dared to come to court unprepared. Judge Williams' historic sentence became a warning hanging on the wall of every law school. This incredible story reminded everyone that sometimes preparation and humility are much more powerful than arrogance. What did you think of this legendary takedown? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next explosive political moment. The next showdown is always just around the corner, and you won't want to miss it. Warning: important disclaimer warning, this video contains entirely fictional content created for entertainment purposes only. All events, conversations, and scenarios depicted are completely imaginary. Any resemblance to real people, events, or situations is purely coincidental. This content does not represent